सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। वासुदेवेन्द्रयोगीन्द्रं नत्वा ज्ञानप्रदं गुरुं मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधोऽभिधीयते। Bhagini, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Guruji.
Avasthatrayam kim
Avasthatrayam kim
Jagrat swapna sushuptyavasthaha
Jagrat swapna sushuptyavasthaha
Jagradavasthaka
Jagradavasthaka
Shrotradi jnanendriyaihi
Shrotradi jnanendriyaihi
Shabdadi vishayaischa jnayate
Shabdadi vishayaischa jnayate Yat sa jagradavastha
Sthula sharirabhimanyatma vishva ityuchyate
Sthula sharirabhimanyatma vishva ityuchyate
Swapnavastha keti chet
Swapnavastha keti chet
Jagradavasthayam yadrishtam yachrutam
Jagradavasthayam yadrishtam yachrutam
Tajjanita vasanaya nidra samaye
Tajjanita vasanaya nidra samaye
Yah prapanchah pratiyate
Yah prapanchah pratiyate
Sa swapnavastha
Sa swapnavastha
Sukshma sharirabhimanyatma taijasa ityuchyate
Sukshma sharirabhimanyatma taijasa ityuchyate
Tatas sushuptyavasthaka
Tatas sushuptyavasthaka
Aham kimapi na janami
Aham kimapi na janami
Sukhena maya nidranubhuyate
Sukhena maya nidranubhuyate
Iti sushuptyavastha
Iti sushuptyavastha
Karana sharirabhimanyatma prajnat ityuchyate
Karana sharirabhimanyatma prajna ityuchyate
Pancakoshakhe
Pancakoshas
Annamaya pranamayo manomayo vijnanamaya anandamayascheti
Annamaya pranamayo manomayo vijnanamaya anandamayascheti.
So the author is discussing the material portion, right, of every living being, and especially the human being. So, and after talking about the material part of the individual, the author will go into the spiritual part. And as a part of that discussion, 11 subdivisions, you might recall, have been made with respect to the material part of the individual. And those 11 subdivisions are the 3 bodies, the 3 avasthas, and the Panchakosha. Now, of these, we have seen the Stula Sukshma Karana Sharira, that is the first tick mark, and the second tick mark, which is the Avasthatraya Sakshi. So we saw both these aspects we have completed. So now we have to get into Panchakosha. Right? In the three states, we saw the waking, dreaming, and sleep, known as Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti. And these three states are continuously changing. And even though the states are continuously coming and going, the individual living being, right, behind the states, the experiencer behind the states happens to be one and the same, right? So, and basically, even when I have a dream and when I sleep and I get up, I say I am awake and I dreamt, right? So there is a non-variable consciousness, which is a Sakshi right through all the three avasthas, right? So even though I am a non-variable conscious being and I get three names from the standpoint of the state in which I am. So when I am in the waking state, I get the name waker. When I am in the dream state, right, I continue to be the same non-variable experiencer, but I get the name dreamer, right? And in the deep sleep state, again, I am the same non-variable consciousness, but I get the name, right? What do I get the name in deep sleep state? Prajna, right? So the same person, basically, in office, he's called a manager. In the house, he might be a husband, father, etc. So the same person being referred to by a number of terms. So we saw that, and I said this is very important for us to remember. So I get the name waker, dreamer, and sleeper. And in Sanskrit, they are called Vishwa, Taijasa, and Prajna. So the waker is Vishwaha because he is completely employing all the three bodies. It is very important to note that the Vishwa employs all the three bodies. That is Stula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and Karana Shariram. Right? So the waker is associated with all of them. And if he is not associated with the Sukshma Shariram, the mind will not be available. And the person can't operate, right? So therefore, the waker uses all the three bodies, right? And when I go to the dream state, I disidentify from the Stula Shariram. So I am only associated with the two other bodies, which is Karana Shariram and Sukshma Shariram. And I am called Taijasa because for dream experience, I don't use any external light. I use my own internal light of consciousness. And that is called Tejaha, meaning the internal light, right? So since the dreamer uses the internal light, the dreamer is called Taijasaha and the sleeper is called Prajnaha because he has withdrawn from the Stula Shariram, he has withdrawn from Sukshma Shariram, all the organs are not functioning. And since no organ is functioning, Jnanendriyani, Karmendriyani, mind, intellect, none of them function. So the sleeper is in total ignorance. As I told you, prana alone functions, right? So the sleeper will say, I slept only after waking up. At the time of sleep, I am not aware of myself as a sleeper. The ignorance is total, and a person who is ignorant of his self is called Agnya. And when I'm totally ignorant, I'm called Pra and Agnya, Prajna. So during the waking state also, I am ignorant of a lot of things, but at least I have some knowledge, right? So in dream also, I have some knowledge, but in sleep, there is total ignorance. That is indicated by Prajna, right? So Karana, Sharira, Abhimani, Atma, Prajna, iti uchyate. So thus we have completed the three Sharirams. We have completed the three Avasthas also. So now what are the five Koshas? So Panchakoshaha ke Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, right? Iti. So for the sake of defining the personality of an individual, the very same three bodies we have seen, Stula, Sukshma, Karana, Shariram themselves, now they are going to be divided into five from another angle. You'll have to follow this intently because there's a slightly different way of classifying this. So, Stula Shariram is divided into basically, if you see, it's taken as one personality called the physical personality or anatomical personality. Sukshma Shariram is divided into 3 layers: Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya. Note carefully, Sukshma Shariram is divided into Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya. Pranamaya referring to the pranic energy personality. We'll see the details shortly. Right? Manomaya to the emotional personality. Vijnanamaya to our intellectual personality. So thus, Sukshma Shariram itself is divided into Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. Right? So Pranamaya corresponds to Kriya Shakti, Manomaya corresponds to Icha Shakti, and Vijnanamaya corresponds to Jnana Shakti. And now you might be able to connect back with Lalita Sahasranama, where we actually praise the goddess, right, for these 3 Shaktis, because it's so important. And this is how they are connected, right? Because all our transactions proceed only with the help of these 3 powers, right? First, we become aware of various things in the universe only through Icha Shakti itself, right? So you will see this Kriya Shakti, Icha Shakti, and Vijnanamaya. How do they connect back, right? So when we go, for instance, to take an example that we all relate to a shopping mall, right? First, we become aware of so many things which are displayed. So Jnana Shakti is functioning. So as you see what happens, you take one of the things and look at it, then you feel, oh, it's so nice, it's worth taking. So Jnana Shakti leads to Icha Shakti, right? So you desire this, you can never desire an unknown object, right? So always desire is there only for a known object. Therefore, the knowledge leads to desire, right? And once knowledge leads to Icha, then Kriya Shakti becomes active. And then you will start, oh, okay, let me put this into my cart and let me purchase it, right? So that is the Kriya Shakti. So then after when you put it into the cart, that alone is not enough, right? Because there is basically a special psychology, right, which they use to find out how, to advertise and get people to buy, right? So Jnana Shakti, Icha Shakti, and Kriya Shakti are there, and then you act out so that the desire is fulfilled, right? So, and when your desire is fulfilled, then what happens, right? So another jnanam, another icha, another kriya, right? So it's a cycle. First, this object is known, so it creates an icha and then a kriya, and you act and you buy. Then you move on to the next one, right? The next item that you see. So it goes on and on and on like that in a cyclical manner. So therefore, for the facility of understanding Sukshma Shariram, it is divided into Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya. And the final one is called, right? So the Karana Shariram part is Anandamaya Koshaha, a state of bliss or experience. Thus, the 3 Sharirams are subdivided into 5 koshas. Each one will be defined now. We will see this in detail. So the teacher first enumerates Annamaya, the anatomical personality, Pranamaya, the pranic personality, Manomaya, the mental or emotional faculty, and then Vijnanamaya, the intellectual personality. Finally, Anandamaya, right? So hereafter, each one is going to be defined. Annamaya kaha.
Annamayah kaha.
Annarasenaiva bhutvanarasenaiva.
Annarasenaiva bhutvanarasenaiva.
Vriddhim prapyanna rupa prithivyaam.
Vriddhim prapyanna rupa prithivyam.
Yad viliyate.
Yad viliyate.
Tadannamayah koshaha.
Tadannamayah koshaha.
Sthula shariram.
Sthula shariram.
Pranamaya kaha.
Pranamayah kaha.
Pranadhya panchavayavaha.
Pranadyah panchavayavaha.
Vagadindriya panchakam.
Vagadindriya panchakam.
Pranamaya koshaha.
Pranamayah koshaha.
Manomaya koshakaha.
Manomayah koshakaha.
Manascha jnanendriya panchakam.
Manascha jnanendriya panchakam.
Militva yo bhavati.
Militva yo bhavati.
Samanomaya koshaha.
Samanomayah koshaha.
Vijnanamaya kaha.
Vijnanamayah kaha.
Buddhi jnanendriya panchakam.
Buddhi jnanendriya panchakam.
Militva yo bhavati.
Militva yo bhavati.
Savijnanamaya koshaha.
Savijnanamayah koshaha.
Anandamaya kaha.
Anandamayah kaha.
Evameva karana sharira bhuta vidyastamalina sattvam.
Evameva karana sharira bhuta vidyasthamalina sattvam.
Priyadi vritti sahitam.
Priyadi vritti sahitam.
Sat anandamaya koshaha.
Sat anandamayah koshaha.
Etat kosha panchakam.
Etat kosha panchakam.
So annamaya kaha. So annarasenaiva bhutva. So he says annamaya kosha is the same as the physical body, and this physical body is a product of the earth principle, the Prithvi, right? And how does the body come into existence from the earth? Taittiriya Upanishad clearly describes this. It says, Tasmadva etasmad atmana akashas sambhutaha. Akashad vayuhu. Vayor agnihi. Agner apaha. Adhyah prithvi. Prithivya oshadayaha. Oshadhibhyonnam. Annam. Annat purushaha. So the 5 elements come into existence one by one. We're going to see this, so I'm not getting into the details now. Under creation, we will see this. And the grossest one is Prithvi. And from the earth, the body is not directly created, but from the earth, the plant kingdom comes into existence. That is called Oshadayaha. And from the plant kingdom, we make varieties of food. So assuming that we are vegetarians, and Veda assumes that we are vegetarians, right? Prithivya, from Prithvi, Oshadayaha. Oshadi means plants. Not only herbs, but all types of plants are called Oshadi. So Annam is made, basically Annam is the cooked food, and Oshadi are the plants, right? And the cooked food is consumed by all human beings, both males as well as females. And the Upanishad describes in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and Chandogya Upanishad that the consumed food in the males and females is converted into varieties of nutritions in the body. Today, what is known as carbohydrates, fats, salts, minerals, etc., all modified form of food. So modification can take place only within the male and female body, and then they get converted. One of the converted material in the male body is the seed or sperm, which is capable of creating another human body. So the creative principle in the male body is the modification of the consumed annam. This is what the Shastra Tattvabodha says, and the Upanishad says that the seed is the final modification of the annam, and the same seed is consumed by the female also. And in the female body, several modifications take place, and in the female body, it is called the egg or the ovum. So the sperm in the human body, or the seed, and the egg in the female body are both anna vikara. So Prithvi to Annam, this is the transformation. Annam to the seed and egg, and then this seed and egg at the time of conception, that is the ritual called Garbhadanam. In our tradition, it is considered a sacred samskara, which is responsible for the creation of the next child body called the fetal body. So basically the body of the baby comes from the seed and egg, which is from Annarasam, which is produced from the Prithvi. So that is what is referred to here. That's why I had to go into the explanation. Annarasena eva bhutva. Annarasam means the seed in the male body and the egg in the female body. And after conception, Annarasena eva bhutva. One of the greatest miracles of Srishti is the formation of the body. And that too, it is just a lump of or a dot of flesh initially. And the whole description, the process of the baby's growth, etc. is described in Garbhopanishad. Right? It talks about the natural formation of the body from this small, uni or bicellular organism. Right? It grows fully. That entire process is described. Right? And then the baby is born. So therefore, the body is called Annamaya. The final modified version of Annam is the Annamaya Kosha. And the initial stages, the fetus gets food not from outside, but through the umbilical cord, and the nutrition is transferred from the mother's body to the baby. And in fact, they say that you have to be very careful as a mother when you're eating, because it can even be transferred to the fetus, right? So, Annarasenaiva Vriddhim Prapya. Right, Vriddhim, from basically Annarasenaiva, from the Annarasa only, the formation of the body happens, right? And thereafter, through Annarasa Vriddhihi, the growth happens. So the formation is because of Annarasa, the growth is because of Annarasa. 9 months the mother carries, and then of course, right, then after the period is over, the baby is born. The mother nourishes the baby up to the birth of the child, and at the childbirth time, we saw the Prasutika Vayu, the Vayu Tattvam gets activated. It is also described in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 6th chapter. So the Prasutika Vayu is talked about, and it pushes the baby, and the baby comes out, right? So the mother thereafter gives Annarasam for a few more months through the mother's milk, and then of course, right, Annarasenaiva Vriddhim Prapya after the few months, right? And after that also. That is why we say Prithvi Devi is our mother, because the body is formed because of Bhudevi. The body grows because of Bhudevi. Body exists because of Bhudevi. And then the body basically does all kinds of things. We live on the Prithvi itself. And sometimes we don't even treat Prithvi properly, right? So very, very important to take care of Prithvi, because the Prithvi is the one that nurtures the baby, right? So gradually nature takes care of this, right? And the very same Annam begins to, at one stage, the very same, we saw Vriddhi, growth, existence, etc. And then the same food, which was the cause for the nourishment, right? That also ultimately causes problems in a way, indigestion, health issues, something doesn't go with the body, etc. And then the body ultimately goes back to the Prithvi. From the earth, the body came, back to the earth, the body goes, becoming nourishment for the next generation. Our Shariram is only going to be the food for the next generation, not directly, they don't eat us directly, but through this process, they become food, right? So the author says, Annam is Srishti Karanam, Annam is Sthiti Karanam, and Annam is Laya Karanam. So earth is the cause of origination, the cause of sustenance, and earth finally resolves our body. Therefore, it is said, Annarasenaiva Bhutva, meaning originating, Annarasenaiva Vriddhim Prapya, growing, Annarupa Prithivya, it goes back to Annam, which is the earth itself. Yad viliyate tat annamaya koshaha. So if our body is nothing, right, but fine clay, right? So yad viliyate, according to Shastra, the whole body is made up of clay, right? So for basically the Sthula Shariram, the gross body, is from Prithvi, right? So in English, we say it is anatomical personality or made up of the chemical substances, right? So that is what it is. And Pranamaya Kosha is the physiological personality, which we are going to enter now. So that is the next Kosha. So this is Annamaya Kosha. So we read this already. So pranamaya kaha. So the pranamaya kosha is the physiological function or personality. It consists of, watch carefully, 10 components of the Sukshma Shariram. By now, in case you have forgotten, we saw 17 or 19 components of Sukshma Shariram. Okay. We saw 5 Jnanendriyanis, 5 Karmendriyanis, 5 Pranas, and mind and intellect. Now 10 are joined together and they constitute the physiological personality. What are these 10? Prana Deha Pancha Vayavaha. So the 5-fold Prana Vayu, right? Outside it is called Vayu. When it is inhaled by us, it becomes pranic energy. So Pancha Prana, which is described in Prashna Upanishad in great detail, right? We saw before. Prana, Apana, Vyana, Samana, Udana, Prana. Basically, these are the 5. Prana, Apana, Vyana, Samana, Udana. So the respiratory system, we generally refer as Prana. Apana, the excretory system, rough equivalence. Vyana, the circulatory system. It's not exactly matching, but you can take it as these. Samana, the digestive system, and Udana, the system which takes the Sukshma Shariram out of the body. And as I said, it also takes, the Udana operates when it has to push out something that is not going with the body. So that's why I said even for vomiting, it is responsible, right? And Udana is a very important function which comes in only during, food poisoning or when the person dies, etc., as I said, or even to push out toxins from the body, right? So Udana does this, right? So it's exactly like Bhagavan says in Gita, Paritranaya Sadhunam, right? He takes an avatara when he has to push out the dharmic people. So similarly, like that, Udana has a very, very important role. It functions as a security system during our lifetime, and it functions as a departing system and traveling system at the time of death also. So you have Panchavayavaha, and in this process, not only they maintain the health by taking the food from outside, it converts food into energy called the pranic energy, right? And it makes sure that it is transferred all over the body, right, for nourishment, etc. And all of this is actually explained very nicely in Chandogya Upanishad, the Shashtadhyayi, right? So, and Bhagavan has kept a beautiful Samana system. It takes the food and generates energy, and so that we can get back into action. So, Pranamaya Kosha, sense, basically stands for pranic energy, otherwise called Kriya Shakti, right? So we saw Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. So Pranamaya Kosha is the Kriya Shakti, right? And a small important information connected with this is, according to Shastra, the entire body has got the Nadi system, right? Crisscrossing the body like the blood vessels. This is something that the medical field has not been able to still completely grasp, right? The Nadi system. And there are Prana Nadis all over the body. Sushumna Nadi is in the center. And from the Sushumna Nadi, there are so many Nadis which go all over the body. So the pranic energy flows through the Nadis. As long as the flow is smooth, the body is healthy. And whenever the flow is affected, we get varieties of ill health. That is why the pranic healers, they only try to control or set right the pranamaya kosha. They've been trained to discern that pranic energy and set it right, right? Pranic healing, etc. we hear, right? And the pranic energy is formed and it will send the energy to the karmendriyani, the organs of action or activity. So therefore, Vagadi Indriya Panchakam refers to the karmendriyani, not the 5 sense organs of knowledge, but 5 sense organs of action. Vak, Pani, Pada, Payu, Upasta, right? Vagadi Indriya Panchakam cha militva. It means together it forms Pranamaya Koshaha. This is the physiological personality. So next is the psychological personality, because that is also very important. Otherwise, health problems can come due to stress, etc. Right? So that's the next one. Manomaya Koshaha. So the Shishya is basically asking the question, now what is Manomaya Koshaha? And here he says that of the Sukshma Shariram, 17 organs, 6 organs put together as a group is Manomaya. So in Pranamaya, we had 10 organs, which was Pancha Prana and Pancha Karmendriyani. Here only 6 portions, Manaha and Jnana Indriya Panchakam. So Jnanendriya Panchakam and Mana put together is 6. And they form this Manomaya Kosha. So mind doesn't have direct access to the external world. So only through the sense organs it can interact. That is why in dream, the thoughts are not generated by the external world, because during dream, mind doesn't contact the world. So the thoughts are generated from within, from the registered memories, vasanas, right? So mind and world do not have direct contact. You must understand that it is only through the Panchakam. So in Manomaya Kosha, we refer to the Panchak Jnanendriyam and Manas, right? So we get exposed to people, we get exposed to speeches, their behaviors, their language, all of them enter the mind and begin to react. So all emotions are formed in the mind because of the world entering the mind. And among varieties of them, right, the most powerful emotion is what? Icha Shakti. Right? So the advertisements target this Icha Shakti only, right? So Bhagavan has created this and it becomes operational in the mind, right? And if Manaha and Jnanendriya Panchakam, if they don't work together, this won't function. So Manaha Jnanendriya Panchakam Militva Yo Bhavati Saha Manomaya Koshaha. So mind has got the thinking faculty, the desiring faculty, right? And Veda never says desires are bad, right? So that is why, as I said, in Lalita Sahasranama, we worship Mother as Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti Swarupini, right? We worship. So there are 3 temples, in fact, in Chennai for Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti, right? In the outskirts, I think in Minjur, in Tiruvattur and one more place actually. So all 3 are there in Chennai only. So the 3 Shaktis are worshipped for that specifically. And the finest desire a person can have is what? Moksha desire. So that desire is needed, right? So the desire is not a bad thing. And desire for moksha alone makes us attend classes, etc., right? So it is very important. So any desire, it can be good or bad, right? But Icha Shakti is coming from the Manomaya Kosha. So it is a blessing. And then we have the next kosha, which is Vijnanamaya kosha. Vijnanamaya kaha buddhi jnanendriya panchakam militva yo bhavati sa Vijnanamaya kosha. So very similar to Manomaya. It also consists of 6 organs. Vijnanamaya, if you see the differences, it is Jnana Shakti or knowing power, right? That is what is associated here. And so what happens is, it is basically the buddhi along with the 5 sense organs which form the Vijnanamaya kosha, right? So the animals have got they have few instinctive desires, but none of them are planned desire. They're not willfully planned. But human beings, they've got instinctive desires also, but they've got much more, right? They know, I have to study, I have to do 10 standard, 12 standard, I have to appear in this exam. If I study this, then I'll have a career. Planning, right? So those kind of plans, decisions, etc. are through Jnana Shakti, because if they come to know of it, and that is how they are able to redirect it to Icha, that is the desire, and then the Kriya Shakti, which is acting after that, so that they can make the mission itself successful, right? So the intellect, Vijnanamaya kosha consists of intellect, the buddhi, and the Jnanendriyani. So you notice that Jnanendriyani comes under Manomaya kosha and Vijnanamaya kosha. There it is associated with the Manas, and here it is associated with the buddhi, right? Because there it is Icha Shakti, here it is Jnana Shakti, right? So very important point here. And the Guru says, for even doing Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam, that moksha desire, if you need to have, this is very, very important, right? So knowing this. So Vijnanamaya kaha. So the Guru is telling Buddhi Jnanendriya Panchakam Militva, right? So that is the Vijnanamaya kosha. Then Anandamaya Kaha. Evameva Karana Sharira Bhuta Avidyasta Malina Sattvam. Right? So note this here. Evameva Karana Sharira Bhuta Avidyasta Malina Sattvam Priya Adi Vritti Sahitam Sat Anandamaya Koshaha. So we'll see each one of these, right? So we have 4 koshas which are equivalent to 2 sharirams. So now there is only 1 shariram and 1 kosha left, right? So that is Karana shariram is left and Anandamaya kosha is left. So there are a lot of technical details here. So Karana shariram has got 3 faculties in potential form, right? So in the Shastram, they are called Trigunas, right? Which is basically, we earlier talked about Icha, Jnana and Kriya Shakti, right? Now, in this context here, we talk about Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna and Tamo Guna. And all these 3 gunas are there in Karana Shariram. And later they will flow into the Sukshma Shariram and into the Stula Sharirams also. Now, the 3 gunas corresponding to Sattva Guna correspond to, so we need to understand that. For there are 3 gunas and corresponding to Sattva Guna, right, which is the basically the knowing faculty we have. Knowing faculty is Sattva Guna related, right? So if you, in fact, those of you who have done my Bhagavad Gita classes, now will be able to relate to the 14th chapter of the Gita where we talk about Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogaha. So that is connected with this, right? So Sattva Guna is connected with the knowing faculty, right? And the knowledge, right, is associated with it. And we have Rajoguna, which makes a person really, really active, right? So that is the basically the active doing faculty, right? So the active children, if you see hyperactive children, it's the Rajoguna which is very dominant, and the Karmendriyani will be very active. When Sattva Guna is dominant, the Jnanendriyani will be very active, right? So natural. And then the last one is Tamo Guna, which is a faculty which is meant to suppress the other 2 gunas so that it can give some rest to the human being, right? Otherwise, imagine the person will constantly be either studying something or running around, right? So rest is needed, and that is what Tamo Guna tries to balance out, the Sattva Guna and Rajo Guna, right? The power of inertia, right? So it is the Tamo Guna which makes a human being regularly, like daily go to sleep, etc. So the power of inertia is very dominant in deep sleep state, so that in deep sleep state, it can totally suppress Rajoguna and it can suppress Sattva Guna also. So in deep sleep state, basically the Tamo Guna suppresses almost all of the Sattva Guna, almost all, and the Rajoguna. And this condition of the deep sleep state or Karana Sharira is called Malina Sattva Avastha, right? So Malina Sattva Avastha means a sattvic state which is almost suppressed by Tamoguna, right? So Malinam means Tamoguna Pratibaddham. So literally Malinam means impure, and here it means the Tamoguna has taken over the Sattva Guna. So Sattva Guna has almost been covered, and therefore there is total ignorance except the minimum knowledge. What is the minimum knowledge? The knowledge of total sleep is, right? Basically, during sleep, I was totally ignorant, right? So, Tamoguna suppressed my Sattva Guna. I didn't have the knowing faculty. This much knowledge I have, right? So, that is that small part. I understand that my Sattva Guna was suppressed, right? I didn't have any knowledge. I slept through it. I was ignorant, right? So if you didn't know anything, you cannot actually say I didn't know anything, right? So therefore, here there is ignorance in deep sleep state, and there is a knowledge of ignorance indicated by the declaration of ignorance during the waking state. In deep sleep state, when you are ignorant, you are not saying you're ignorant. After you wake up, right, there is this minimum sattva which makes you tell that I was ignorant, right? So no Rajoguna, minimum sattva, and also Tamoguna is there. So this relaxed state, relaxed because Rajoguna doesn't allow the mind to be active, right? There's no worry also in deep sleep state. So all emotional disturbances, worry, etc. are suppressed And therefore, it is a state where there is Ananda. So Ananda means joy because Rajoguna and consequent worries are suppressed. Therefore, it is a state of joy, right? So two states are there in deep sleep state, happiness and ignorance, right? Minimum knowledge of the ignorance is also there. If you want to be technically correct, you have happiness, ignorance, and minimum knowledge of the ignorance. That's there in deep sleep state. So happiness is because Rajoguna is suppressed, ignorance is because Tamoguna is active, and the little bit knowledge is because of Malina Sattvaguna. So the description of Karana Shariram is Karana Sharira Bhuta Avidyasta, right? Karana Shariram is known as Avidya. We saw that in the definition of Karana Shariram. We saw Anirvachya Anadi Avidya Rupa. If you remember, I put 4 circles and I defined each one separately for you. So Anirvachya Anadi Avidya Rupa. So Avidya is another name for Karana Shariram. In that Avidya, Malina Sattvam means Sattva Guna overpowered by Tamoguna is there. And in that state, there is ignorance and Ananda. And since we experience happiness in deep sleep state, it is called Anandamaya Kosha, right? So if there is one state which will uniformly give happiness, it is deep sleep state. It will never fail us, right? Whereas in Jagrat, we do become happy, but we do not know when we will become happy. When the happiness will go away, that we don't know, right? So sometimes we are happy and we laugh and all that, but we don't know when that will get converted, what problem we will face, right, etc. We don't know that, right? So in deep sleep state, everybody is uniformly happy, and that is why everyone loves sleep. So entering sleep, everybody likes, right? So Anandamaya Kosha is uniform in deep sleep state, and it expresses now and then in waking and dream state also, the Ananda, right? So it is dominant in Sushupti Avastha, but partially active in Jagrata and Swapna. And that is expressed in the form of happiness in the waking state. So whenever we are happy in the waking state, we are temporarily dipping into the Karana Shariram. And since the happiness in the waking and dream, they have some gradation, right? So the gradation is accounted for using 3 types of condition called Vritti. So Karana Shariram has got 3 conditions, which is what is referred to here as, and in Taittiriya Upanishad, they discuss this, Priya, Moda and Pramoda, right? Priya, Moda and Pramoda are 3 conditions, and how to recognize that? When there is a Priya condition, we say I'm happy. Like I'm finding an object when I'm looking for several years, right? It has never come in the shop. Today I find it there, right? So that is called Ishta Darshanajam Sukham Priyam. So that is Priyam, the joy born out of seeing a liked object. Then before you sell it, it is getting sold, you want to buy that, right? You want to buy the particular object. So now once you buy it, then you become the owner, right? So Ishta Grahanajam Sukham Moda. So this is called Moda. Grahanam means acquiring. So Darshana Sukham, then Grahana Sukham, right? Then suppose it's a new dress that you have picked up. You're looking for an occasion to wear, and it's a particular occasion on which you wear. So Bhogajam Sukham, right? When I experience, when I wear it, then it becomes Pramoda, right? So in English, we have 3 degrees, right? Positive degree, comparative, and superlative. Happy, happier, happiest, Priya, Moda, Pramoda. All 3 belong to the Karana Shariram. So Priyadi Vritti Sahitam. Vritti means condition, right? So it is endowed with that Anandamaya Kosha. Thus we've got 5 layers of personality we have seen, right? So the author has now concluded the Kosha Panchakam topic, right? So with Anandamaya Kosha, the Pancakoshas are also completed. So all the 11 parts of Anatma are over, right? Shariratrayam, Avasthatrayam, Panchakosha. So hereafter, the Atma topic has to come, a very profound and one of the most important topics, right? So Etat Kosha Panchakam, right? Etat means these 5 which we have completed until now, Annamaya, Pranamaya, right, to Anandamaya, these groups of 5, which is called Kosha Panchakam. So once you say Panchakam, right, then it becomes Kosha Panchakam becomes singular, and therefore it says Etat Kosha Panchakam, right? So this is more important for Sanskrit students. Why it is Etat Kosha Panchakam? Because it is treated as a singular there, right? Because it is Panchakam. Okay. Madiyam Shariram.
Madiyam Shariram.
Madiyah Pranaha.
Madiyah Pranaha.
Madiyam Manascha Madiya.
Madiyam Manascha Madiya.
Madiya Buddhihi.
Madiya Buddhihi.
Madiyam Ajnanamiti.
Madiyam Ajnanamiti.
Svenaiva Jnayate.
Svenaiva Jnayate.
Tadyatha Madiyatvena.
Tatyatha Madiyatvena.
Jnatam Kataka Kundala Grihadikam.
Jnatam Kataka Kundala Grihadikam.
Swasmad Bhinnam Tatha Pancakoshadikam. Swasmad Bhinnam.
Swasmad Bhinnam Tatha Pancakoshadikam. Swasmad Bhinnam.
Madiyatvena Jnatamatmana Bhavati.
Madiyatvena Jnatamatmana Bhavati.
So Kataka Kundala Grihadikam Swasmad Bhinnam Tata Pancakoshadikam Swasmad Bhinnam. So we'll see this, right? Very important part. So from Madiyam Shariram onwards, one of the most important, profound topics of Atma we are entering, right? So, and we have to go up to Evam Sachidananda Swarupam. So it's a very, very profound topic. So we'll see a quick summary of this. 3 messages we are going to extract from this portion. Very important messages. So by studying the 3 Sharirams, the Panchakosha and the 3 Avasthas, we have seen that all these are presented as a product of the 5 elements, right? So Sthula Shariram, if you take the definition, somebody asked me this question at that time. Panchikrita Pancha Mahabhutai Kritam. What does it mean? Made up of the 5 elements, and we'll see creation later. So the Shastric elements, which are space, air, fire, water, and earth. Sukshma Shariram also, if you study, it is Apanchikrita Pancha Mahabhutai Kritam. Again made up of 5 subtle elements, basically like matter and energy, that's all. Right? So energy is basically an invisible version of matter only. So we have gross elements and we have subtle elements. If you go to Karana Shariram, that is also made up of the same material only, right? Because we said Karana Shariram is Sthula Shariram and Sukshma Shariram in seed form. So if Karana Shariram also is essentially the same as Sthula Sukshma Shariram, right? Then it also has to be made up of the same matter only, but it is subtler and subtler, right? So matter and energy, their very nature are jadam or achetanam. They are inert or insentient only. It is not sentient by itself, and matter cannot produce sentiency. Therefore, the scriptures want us to know that since the body-mind-sense complex is also made up of a physical body, which is made up of matter only, it has to be inert in nature. It has to be logically, if you see, the body-mind-sense complex has to be inert only. So there cannot be any difference between the desk in front of me and the body. Both are made up of only physical elements, right? And they talk about calcium, iron, sodium deficiency, etc. So it's basically biochemistry, right? So therefore, the scripture asks us, if body-mind-sense complex or Sharira-trayam is also matter, it is logically inert, how come we are experiencing the body as though it is sentient and conscious, right? How come we are feeling that? Exactly like this example of The moon on a Pournami night, we experience as a very, very bright moon. We know that a planet or a moon cannot, as a planet, cannot have, or a satellite cannot have brightness or light of its own. We have studied that. And moon is not a star like our sun. Stars have got intrinsic natural light, whereas planets do not have. And satellites also do not have. Therefore, if I know logically, moon being a non-star, it cannot have a light of its own. This is my knowledge. But on Pournami night, when I look at the moon, which should not be logically bright, appears bright. Not only bright, right? We also use the word moonlight. And they talk about the degree of the intensity of moonlight. There are special days, right? When the moonlight reaches a maximum, it's an astronomical phenomena, it's an extraordinary light, etc. And we use the term moonlight when it doesn't even have a natural light of its own. What is the inference? It must have borrowed light, right? So what happens? If an intrinsically non-bright moon should appear bright, it is because of borrowed light only. And there is actually no such thing called moonlight. Moonlight means the light which is on the moon, not necessarily off the moon, right? So it has been donated by some other principle, which we know is Surya Bhagavan, right? Similarly, our scriptures say, Shariratrayam cannot have sentiency or consciousness, right? And if the Shariratrayam, which is Jadam, is now conscious, the consciousness is in the body, but it is not of the body. And it is not of the body, it must be borrowed from some other source. And that some other source must be a non-material entity. Why? Because if the other source is also a material entity, then it will be insentient, inert. Therefore, the source which is lending must be a non-material principle. So the scriptures name the spiritual principle and that spiritual principle alone as Atma. So Atma is that spiritual principle for which consciousness is not bothered or is not borrowed. But consciousness is its very nature, which is of the nature of consciousness. Atma is of the nature of consciousness. Chaitanya Swarupam, Chit Swarupam, Jnana Swarupam, Vijnana Swarupam. So different words are used. It is the nature of consciousness. Therefore, when we are experiencing consciousness in the body and we say that the body is conscious, we use the consciousness as though it is an adjective, something belonging to the body. Scriptures say the experienced consciousness, you must note carefully, right? We are taking it for granted just as we are taking the moonlight for granted. So an intelligent person experiences moonlight and understands that the moonlight doesn't belong to the moon. So what is the nature of the moonlight? It is not a part of the moon, not a product of the moon. It is not even property of the moon, right? Though even then we call it moonlight, it is an independent principle that is giving it, which is coming from Surya, right? And it is an independent principle which pervades the moon and makes the moon bright. Basically, the sunlight does this. And it is not the property of the moon and it is not confined to the moon, right? If it is the property of the moon, it should be located there. But it is not limited by the boundary of the moon, right? So basically, moonlight is not part or product or property of the moon. It is an independent principle which pervades and makes the moon bright. It is not limited by the boundary of the moon. And the fourth feature is the light will continue even if the moon disappears, right? And the moonlight will definitely continue because it is not a part or product of property, right? And finally, when moon is not there, right? If it is not there, even then the light will continue, but for want of the reflecting medium, the pure light will not be recognizable. It is unmanifest, but not absent. If you can understand these 5 features of the moonlight, our scriptures say you have to extend it to the consciousness also. So I'll just enumerate the 5 features and then we can see, right? So consciousness is not a product or property of the body. Consciousness is an independent, non-material principle which pervades the material body and enlivens it. And consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body, and consciousness will continue to exist even when the borrowing material body or mind perishes. Consciousness will continue. But consciousness minus the body-mind complex is an abstract principle which cannot be recognized, not because it is absent, but because the recognizable medium is not available. And this consciousness, right, according to Shastra, is the Atma. So that is what is said here. We will stop here because there's a lot to understand and assimilate, right? Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, I can see some questions here. One second. So there was a specific question on, this was on another say. Annarasena eva is annarasena eva. It is annarasena eva, not annarase naiva. So that's the Srinivas Sharma. It is annarasena, by the essence of food alone, right? So, and then yad viliyate. Actually, you should be having this book put up. It has word by word meaning. You can take a look at it from that also. This is for Krishna Prasad ji. You have word by word meaning in the PDF that is put up on the site. So you can go through that. Anyway, now let me see who has raised the hands. Okay. Sri Ramji, go ahead.
I'm trying to grasp a working understanding of the Karana Sharira. So I look at the table that you have in the previous slide deck from the last class. Sthula Sharira is okay, gross physical body. Sukshma Sharira has got the Pancha Jnanendriya, Pancha Karmendriya, Pancha Pranaha, and the Antakarana. You say that it migrates from one Janma to another Janma. So do I understand the Karana Sharira as the aspect of the consciousness particular to the being?
No. At this stage, it is better that we just stick to the following, right? The causal body is the subtlest form of body which holds all of the details, right, of the jiva in a potential form. It is unmanifest form, and therefore it comes into play in deep sleep state because all the other things resolve except that prana. So that deep ignorance of oneself is one manifestation, and the sense of happiness that you have. That's all. Karana Shariram understanding is in difficulty level next only to Atma. So when you start understanding Atma, you will understand Karana Shariram also. And
but is Karana Sharira unique to the individual?
Yes, it's very unique to every individual, and it may help, which I'm going to cover this later, but it may help you now. Karana Shariram, basically, at the time of Pralayam, even Sukshma Shariram will get destroyed. Just like the Sthula Shariram gets destroyed, at Pralayam time, even Sukshma Shariram will not be there. Everything resolves into the Karana Shariram only. So Karana Shariram is unique to every Jiva. Yes.
Okay. So Karana Shariram and the Sukshma Shariram migrate from one Janma to another Janma.
Yes, from one Janma to another. We'll see this in detail during death, the process of death. Basically, the Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness, along with Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram, will go from one Janma to another Janma.
You brought it up again today, the Panchikata, Pancham Mahabhutahi and Apanchikata. You said one is gross elements, one is subtle elements. What do we mean by that?
We'll come to that. Gross is gross, subtle is subtle, that's all. So for you, you just remember that as matter and energy. But the process, right, of how this happens, etc., we are going to see in creation. Shortly, we'll see that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, then we have Sushila Venkatraman.
Madam, good evening. I'm Venkatraman here.
Good evening.
I have a question arising out of your last class. This time also you touched up. You said in deep sleep, both the Sukshma Shariram and Sthula Shariram are completely not in a working mode. They are quiet, and only the Karana Shariram. So everything is in a non-conscious manner, and the body is asleep.
Prana alone functions.
Yeah, exactly. So my question is, obviously we all, when the body gets tired, we go to sleep, and then now we go to the deep sleep. What triggers the body to wake up? Because everything is shut down.
That is also the law of karma only operating. It is the law of karma that is operating when the Sukshma Shariram comes back and then you get up. That is why many people have nightmares, etc., right? They don't even get to sleep. So that is again the law of karma which is operating. It will decide when you get up.
So to understand you very clearly, the law of karma, that means all the karmas we have done, whatever in the past, is working on, I don't know which platform, to wake up the body again?
Yes, with the exception that when you keep an alarm or something, that's also agami karma only. We look at the three types of karma, but it is only law of karma that operates as to when you get up.
So sorry, I'll just extend the question again. Generally, for most of us, suppose you want to wake up at 4 in the morning, by 3:30 you start getting some kind of a sensation to wake up without even alarm. Is it somewhere related to this?
Because it is there in your vasana, right? So your memory is, they're all connected. Your the Karana Sharira and the memory is basically what holds as the repository of all the karmas. So that is how it is able to operate and wake you up. It happens
so when we go to sleep, we have thought we should wake up at 3. Automatically something is working inside and makes you alert at that time, like a clock and.
Correct. Mostly it works. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Venkateshwaran Mahodaya.
Madam, this is again an extension of the previous question. In the Sukshma, that is in the Sushupti state, you know, when your interaction with the world creates a mental peace, then Sukshma, that Sushupti state is attained, and you have your normal good sleep. But when the mind is disturbed due to your interactions with the world, this sometimes you never get into Sushupti state. So this body, even if it is tired, you are not able to get into that state because of worries. So this is you can. That is why people want to overcome that by artificial means. Is it so?
Yeah, that's all. It's a question of, we are only discussing the three states. We are not discussing how a person gets into deep sleep state, etc. Right? So we're just describing the three states. So if you are in deep sleep state, then you're only experiencing happiness and ignorance, which also you're aware of, but you're able to recollect later. That's all. We are not discussing about interventions, medical interventions, etc. Right? So, Vasudev ji, go ahead.
So your karma will.
I can't hear you, Vasudev ji.
Can say because of your karma, you have to get up and do certain things.
Okay, somebody else is speaking with their mic on. Zana Saxena, please go ahead. Okay,
hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
What is this coma and brain dead states?
Yeah, so those states are basically somewhat similar to Sushupti only, because there is very little of the vasanas functioning. So at least we are able to explain, saying that that is the kind of state they are in. So actually I haven't done any, in fact, I was thinking I should read up something about, whether they have conducted ECGs during that time, and because that this deep sleep state comes only for 1 hour, 1.5 hours in adults, right? So how does it work in coma state, etc.? Nobody has made any study on that, but it is very similar to the deep sleep state where only the prana is functioning, basic prana. A little bit of, they only give intravenous fluids, etc., right, as feed.
See, people talk about this donation of organ, but does this thing permit that?
Okay, now this is a very controversial question. So I am going to allow you all to take a decision. Okay, now that's what the gurus do. I'll tell you what the Shastra says. What does the Shastra say? The Shastra says that we'll go through these. The Sthula Shariram has been given to you in accordance with the karma. So you have kind of purchased or leased using karma dollars. Now, when you purchase or lease, what is the expectation? You got it from somewhere, you have to return the same thing, right? So that is the expectation. So Shastra tells you that you have got it with your punya papa, whatever account, and you are expected to hand over back when you complete. So that's what it says. So we can decide what we want to do if we decide to take one organ out and donate, etc.
Can I ask the question now, ma'am?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. You are able to hear me, right? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. 2 observations and 1 question. The moon example was very clear in understanding the concept, particularly when the moon is not there, still the light is there. Other observation is, what happens to the food and drink that we consume, and what happens to us during sleep? I think the medical science still doesn't have full understanding of that.
Correct.
My question is, we have so many Ayurvedic colleges, universities in India. Do they teach Tattvabodha there?
Okay. They do understand the role of Sukshma Sharira very much. And they do understand all of these nadis and everything. They use all of them. So Tattvabodha fully may not be relevant to them, because we now get into, after this we get into, Atma and all that. But the Panchikaranam, the formation based on the 5 elements, then the nadis, the prana operation, all of them they study, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now Ramaya Narayanan, please go ahead.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Where does willpower come in this? All the different categories of bodies you explained. Where does willpower come? And why we are not able to go to deep sleep with our will?
Why we are not able to go to deep sleep with our will? Yeah. With your will, you can only go to sleep. You can lie down, right? When you get into sleep is determined by a lot of aspects that we discussed, right? So we'll come to that later. But on willpower, we will be discussing. So the human being, with the help of the willpower, is capable of doing a lot of things. So we talked about Kriya Shakti, right? So using the intellect, a human being decides that he should do something and he should not do something. And that is why he has punyam and papam. And we will see that using the free will, a person, a human being is able to influence his destiny. So it is not a fatalistic kind of religion. And there's so much talked about willpower. So we'll see that as part of law of karma.
Thank you. Dhanyavada.
Okay. Then Thomas, you can go ahead. Thomas, are you able to speak up? It says Thomas is using an older version of Zoom. Chitra, you can go ahead.
So you described about the 3 states of sleep, right? So I was wondering, when people have this medicines to sleep, right? Like sleeping tablets and all those things. So do they still go through the 3 different states, or they directly go into the deep sleep stage?
They would still go through the 3 states. See, some of them have of course, waking state is not a sleep state at all. So it will only be dream and deep sleep. Dream is largely determined by the vasanas that are there in the imprinted in the memory. So if the mind does not have vasanas, then one does not have a dream at all, right? It's only a in-between state and repose. So it's largely dependent on the vasanas that are there in the mind. So even if you have tablets.
Okay, that probably you can compare it with the coma question somebody asked just now. So the having pills and then going to sleep, and in that you also described the 3 gunas which come into play, right? So what happens is, like, do you think the gunas are also affected by these medicines?
Yes,
like
what happens
Tattvabodha,
is
Rajoguna and Tamoguna you described, and Tamoguna is giving the rest, right? So the power of inertia, you said. So when people try to have this, they are increasing the Tamoguna, is what is the correct understand? Okay.
Correct. Basically, you're intervening with the guna balance, sattva, rajo, and tamoguna balance, and you're actually causing that to happen. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
So that is why Ayurveda people are very scared about intervening and giving pills which are chemical based. They rather go with herbs than chemicals. Right?
Yeah, but herbs also have the chemicals, is what
Absolutely.
people who argue against that, right?
Correct.
So they are saying that that is also a chemical. So
yeah, that's true. But what is very interesting is, I remember they call this vasambu, right? So that vasambu, even if you put it around a baby's stomach, right, they go to sleep and they are rid of the pain. So I'm very surprised as to maybe they are milder versions of the same chemicals. After all, finally, everything is from Panchabhutam only.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks, Rama.
Welcome. Anybody else? Yeah, I see some more hands, I think. Suvarna Bhagini, please go ahead.
Nothing, Guruji. Some questions are there in question and answer box.
Okay. Now I'm just going to go there. Okay. This I covered, Annarasena Eva, and if you, it is Annarasena Eva. Yeah. And Mary. Why is modified in the brackets? What does it mean? Now I don't know which slide this is. Could you please tell me which slide this is modified in the bracket? Maybe because it is processed, we put it as modified.
Manomaya Koshaha, mind within bracket modified sheath.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, Manomaya Koshaha. Oh, because it is, just to indicate that it is like, it's a not exactly modification, that is all. Okay. Srinivas Sharma ji, so now don't read it as Annarasena Eva, it is Annarasena Eva. In case I had made the mistake, let me stand corrected. Yeah, and this Kataka Kundala Grihadikam, we will see in detail in the next class, which is going to be discussed anyway. So Samadhi does not belong to any of these three states. Samadhi is a state where you are aware of the thoughts. So you are not in Swapna Avastha or Sushupti Avastha there. Okay. Thomas has put down the question here. My question is further to the earlier question on organ donation. Even if I donate an organ, what would also eventually die and return to earth? Does the Shastra say that I have to give back all parts of the Stula Sharira at the time of death? Yes. At the time of death, the expectation is that Agni that you light, in general, I'm talking about married people, the light that the Agni that they ignite at the time of the wedding, the same Agni is supposed to be kept, and in that Agni, the body is supposed to be given up at the end, right? Because there are a total of some 40 odd samskaras that one has to go through during one's lifetime. And then at the end, it has to be given back. The last samskara being the Antyeshti, the boy, the son has to do it. And so the Antyeshti is complete only when you hand over all parts of the body back to Agni. So I hope it answers. Oh, I have not given mic to Anne Mary. 1 second. Please go ahead, Anne.
Namaste. Thank you for
Namaste.
such a wonderful lecture. Could you please tell us, you are saying about 6th chapter about Prasuti Vayu, from which Upanishad?
That is in, let me get you the correct reference, okay? I will pick the reference and tell you, because it's there in Brihadaranyaka also. I don't know exactly which chapter and all. I'll find out and I'll give it to you in the next class.
And this is related to the pranas.
Yes, and Garbhopanishad has everything in it.
Ah, okay.
That will have all of them in it. All the details of the Garbha.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I've answered all the questions here also. Otherwise, I will be doing it in the next class anyway. So are there any more people who want to? Yeah, there is Kishori. Please go ahead.
Pranam, Guruji.
Pranam.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm just enjoying your class very much. I'm so thankful you're teaching this subject. Don't have any question, but I still want to say thank you. And it's kind of overwhelming, all the topics, and it doesn't stay in my mind altogether. I have to go back and listen again. But Dhanyavadam for this special class. I really enjoy it.
Sure. If you want, you can go through the introduction to Vedanta also, because that's more English and less Sanskrit. But sometimes I feel this subject, it's better to get used to the Sanskritam.
Yeah, I have actually did that because that was your requirement when I signed up for the class. And I'm just doing it because this kind of subject I have never learned in my childhood. Now I'm just getting into it more and more, and I'm enjoying it so much. I live in USA, so it works out. The time-wise it also works out.
No, this caters to people outside of India also. And the good thing is you need not worry at all. Most of us, when we go through Tattvabodha and Introduction to Vedanta, we wonder, wow, this is a subject that we've never ever come across in our life. So that's the feeling that everybody has. So just relax, and how much ever you can absorb, that's fine. It'll work out all fine.
Looks like just it's going so fast. So I try to write some points and then I get behind and then I have to just wait.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Dhanyavadam very much.
Welcome. So we'll all meet. Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Because I didn't put down the hands.
Yeah, I just want to add to Kishori.
Yeah.
Our doctors need to take this class.
There are a few doctors who come to Swamiji's classes. And I do have few doctors attending my classes also. And they do look at it very differently. And I think they use it in their, the way to remain calm and composed, etc. Yes.
Dhanyawad.
Dhanyawad. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I think we are done. So, yeah, this Zana Saxena, I think you haven't been able to speak up at all. Okay, fine. So we will meet next week then. Hari Om.
Thank you.
Dhanyawada.
Dhanyawada, Guruji.
Dhanyawada.